do a share screen. Hey guys, welcome to tonight's team call. I'm Tanya Stewart, Emerald Ambassador. I've been with the company since June of 2013. For those of you who are not quite familiar with me yet, tonight I'm going to be speaking on fungus overgrowth. This is a really awesome topic in my opinion. It gets me super passionate. It is the answer. Hold on, you guys. Let me just manage my call here. Make sure everybody's muted. Okay. It is really the core problem to a lot of people's health issues, and I'm going to explain how this works in a nutshell, how it manifests in our body, and what you can do to stay away from it, basically. So our products are one awesome solution. We all know that, but there's also ways that we can adapt our diet to work with our products so that our products are not constantly fighting your decisions of what you put in your mouth. And so we want to actually work with our products to get the ultimate outcome and benefits both on the health side and weight loss. So with that said, let me dive into my PowerPoint. I'm going to do a quick share screen here for y'all. And just so you know too, I am going to do some reading off of some sheets. When I gave this class, I didn't do any reading, but there's some really, really good details. I couldn't quite get them all memorized, and I want to make sure I hit on that today. So I want to start really, really basic because, like I said, I do want this to be available to all of our wholesale users, even your customers. If you care to share that with them, you can certainly do so. And a lot of those people don't even understand the basis of what fungus overgrowth is. So I'm going to start with that. The formal name for fungus overgrowth is Candida. As a Plexus ambassador, we all know we don't use that term because it is technically a disease and we're not allowed to speak towards diseases. So change it up to fungus overgrowth. I have a quick quote for you. Among the more important and recently recognized connections are those between the immune system, the endocrine system, and the brain. And since Candida toxins affect each of these systems and one system affects the other, the yeast connection can cause all sorts of symptoms. And this is why, a big reason why Plexus was able to blow up with 16,000+% growth within 3 years of creating the product that rids the body of Candida. Because the fact is, most of us are running around with some level of fungus overgrowth, and many of us are running around with a huge, huge amount of fungus overgrowth. Typically speaking, the more you find people with a greater level of medications that they're taking and health systems. Let me just back out of this real quick. I have a feeling I have somebody not on muted. Oops, sorry guys. Just get some muting going on here so I don't disturb anybody. Okay, so you probably, if you've started to talk about Plexus to your friends, you're probably finding out, and maybe astonishingly so, that most people are walking around with some sort of health issue. A lot of people walk around with health issues and don't even call them that. So these are things like allergies or migraine headaches or asthma, sinus infections, acid reflux. They just figure, you know, this is something that I got unlucky enough to get. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of that is starts with the problem of fungus overgrowth or Candida. One of the reasons why so many of us are running around with it is our diet and what we're doing to try to control the negative symptoms, which is antibiotics. So I'll be getting into that in a little bit. So a fungus overgrowth is something present in the gut. It starts as a microscopic bacteria. All of us are born with this. It is meant for decomposition when we die. So obviously we don't want this activated when we're alive, or it's going to cause a lot of problems, which is what we're seeing around us. I already stated that, meant for decomposition. So it feeds on dead matter, processed sugars because it morphs into a yeast, and refined carbs that become sugars. So one of the ways that you can determine if you have a Candida overgrowth or how bad it might be is to take an at-home test. This is not a guarantee, of course, but it's a fairly common at-home test. It was actually featured on Dr. Oz, so it is definitely something that is looked upon with some level of respect as a working unit for you to be able to see where you're at. So the saliva test, I have it showing on the screen. You simply spit in a cup first thing in the morning, a clear glass so that you can see what's going on with your saliva. The key is make sure you do not drink or anything before you take the spit test. Do not touch your lips to anything. Do not consume food. Don't brush your teeth, yada, yada, yada. Just first thing in the morning, have this glass next to your bed. You want to work up a good amount of spit in your mouth. Do not like bring it up from your throat. That's not necessary. Just work up a good amount of spit from your mouth and spit into this cup that's next to your bed. And as you can see on the screen, you'll either see string-like legs or tentacles, I call them, floating down into the water. The entire chunk of spit, or a good portion of it, will start to sink and break up into cloudy specks, or the entire chunk of spit, or a good portion of it, will sink all the way as a whole section to the bottom of a cup. That is worst case scenario. You probably have a very high level of fungus overgrowth if the entire thing falls to the bottom of the cup. All this means is the yeast is heavier than the water, and most of your spit is yeast if it's falling all the way to the bottom of the cup. So that's a great at-home test for you or your customers, etc. So how does Candida become an overgrowth? Well, as I said, it feeds on dead matter, processed sugars, refined carbs that turn to sugars. So we create dead matter when we consume antibiotics. Oh, I got a little bit of a spelling error here. Birth control pills, hormone drugs are three very common areas where we are consuming and creating dead matter within ourselves. So the antibiotics, I think, is obvious. Even if you are fairly healthy, there's times that you're getting, very oftentimes getting antibiotics for, if you take a flu shot, which I'm not a fan of, by the way, but if you take a flu shot, if you have a Z-Pack, you come down with the flu and you have to go to the clinic and you have to take a Z-Pack, or any other kind of antibiotic or medicine. My husband is allergic to poison ivy. So for a long time, the only way we knew how to treat it was steroids. Those are the absolute worst for your body. They truly are. So avoid steroids as much as possible. And they use steroids, I feel like today, like popping candy. I mean, everything seems to get steroids thrown at it. So there are alternatives to this. For those of you who are open to it, I highly recommend going to a holistic doctor whenever given the opportunity. My husband did that with his poison ivy and was able to get on natural products that actually did a better job than the steroids. And so now he doesn't have a rageful mind, and he's not destroying his good gut bacteria, and he's still getting the outcome that he wants. But the antibiotics create the dead matter that feeds the fungus. As a side note, antibiotics also obviously kill good bacteria as well as bad bacteria, so you're automatically setting up your body and your immune system not to function in your favor when you are getting health issues. Estrogen, which is a major ingredient in the contraceptive pill, is known to promote the growth of yeast, which is what this candida obviously morphs into. And an imbalance of hormones allows candida to dominate. Candida releases two particularly nasty toxins: ethanol, alcohol, and acetaldehyde. I'm not good at that word. Which is a chemical responsible for the main symptoms of a hangover that can impair nerve and liver function and disrupt the endocrine system. It is like having a large amount of toxic alcohol floating around in your bloodstream. It will burden your liver, affect your blood sugar levels, and disrupt your hormones, all of which will cause you to put on weight. So that's a problem with weight gain. Processed sugars and refined carbs. I hope we don't have to speak too much for you guys to understand that that is a major, major problem in our society right now. We have become just huge consumers of sugar. Some statistics here are fructose is now #1 source of calories in the United States. In 1700, the average American consumed 4 pounds of sugar a year. By 1800, it had risen to 18 pounds of sugar per year In 1900, the average was 90 pounds of sugar per year, up from just 4 pounds per year in 1700. And in 2009, it was estimated we were consuming a whopping 180 pounds of sugar per year, a half a pound per day. So keep that in mind. We are creating our own problems with regards to fungus overgrowth, and I am going to get to what these problems really end up being. But some of this is a vicious cycle where once we get our blood sugars out of whack, we start to have energy issues and sugar cravings, and we grab onto more sugar. That's not actually what we need. Our bodies are just imbalanced. Same with the fungus overgrowth. It feeds on sugar, so it's going to basically become a parasite to your body, and it will make you crave the sugars and carbs that it wants more of. And you become its feeding machine, so you eat more sugars and carbs, put on more weight, feed the fungus overgrowth, which then becomes a greater toxin in your body, further deteriorating your systems and causing all kinds of problems, as we'll get into in a minute. Now, the average person, the average woman should be consuming no more than 6 to 7 teaspoons of sugar per day. There are 4 grams of sugar in each teaspoon. So that will give you a really good idea. Write that down. 4 grams of sugar per teaspoon, 6 to 7 teaspoons per day is what you should be limited to. Sugar is in everything, so you've got to be really, really mindful when you're trying to tackle this issue. Men should not be consuming more than 9 teaspoons a day, and children should not be consuming more than 5. The average person at this point is consuming somewhere in the range of 20 to 22 teaspoons of sugar a day. This is a major, major problem, and it is feeding fungus, aside from the fact that it's causing diabetes, imbalancing your blood sugars. The excess sugar gets stored as fat, so you're gaining weight. I mean, it causes inflammation. There's an endless reasons why you should do everything you can to avoid processed refined sugars, and really all sugars. I eat organic sugar, and honey and maple syrup, all organic. But I limit it as much as possible, but it still doesn't make it good. The organic sugar is still not okay to be eating, even though it's organic. But, you know, I live in a world where I still choose to say, hey, I do only live one life, and I think I can balance this out. And I got some awesome Plexus products to undo any damage that I'm doing, right? We all love that. But we also, one of the reasons I'm doing this video tonight for you guys is we also want to be mindful not to use the Plexus products as too much of a crutch and being completely oblivious to our daily actions that might be working against us, and they are working against us if you're eating a lot of sugar and so forth, and definitely not allowing the Plexus products to do as good of a job as they could. I was going to make another point to that, and I lost my train of thought. So just making sure that you're being mindful of the balance that's what I was going to say, being mindful of the balance that you're making and the contribution you need to be making in terms of your responsible decision making on a daily basis. So a side note here, you know, I was taking Accelerator for a long time. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's a metabolism boost and it helps you lose weight, right? I'm 45 years old now, and if I can get help losing weight, I will take it. But I actually physically went off of Accelerator on purpose. I should say not physically, but intentionally went off of Accelerator on purpose, because I was actually realizing I was not working out anymore because I was already skinny enough for my liking, and it was a crutch. So I stopped working out. So I actually intentionally went off of the Accelerator so that I knew I was going to have to put in that little extra effort and stay on my workout so I could build muscle mass and be responsible. So, you know, even I am guilty of having used our products to benefit myself and then kind of taking the easy way out. So you want to be aware of that. Here's the fun fact for you. Diabetes. High levels of glucose effectively blind the receptors in your immune system that identify pathogens. This allows the Candida yeast cells to multiply and transform into their fungal pathogenic form. So be mindful of that. That's another negative. I have on this list mercury fillings. Mercury particles and vapor are continuously released in the body as you chew, grind, and brush your teeth. Firstly, it worsens some of the symptoms associated with candida-related complex. Because mercury is a neurotoxin, it can cause symptoms like brain fog, fatigue, and memory loss, which are precisely the symptoms that you might be suffering from already as a result of the candida infestation. Secondly, mercury has been shown to weaken the immune system. This allows the candida population to flourish without the usual immune cells working to slow it down, and also prevents recovery from a sustained candida infestation. There's no safe level of mercury to have in your system, so keeping it in your mouth is definitely a bad idea. So that's just a side note. Not everybody can take care of that matter right away, but just keep it in mind in terms of mercury fillings. Mercury has also been found to be in a lot of medicines and antibiotics, so keep that in mind also. Chemicals, particularly fluoride and chlorine, obviously not a good idea. These types of things will kill the good bacteria in your gut, weaken your immune system, and allow small numbers of candida yeast cells in your gut to grow into an infestation. So those are all good reasons to stay away from that kind of thing. Next slide. Real quick, you guys. Okay, so the next slide, for those of you who are not actually on the PowerPoint tonight, is, does this look familiar? And I simply have a whole list of symptoms and diseases caused by candida. And some of these, you know, we can get just from normal existence. Every now and again we get acne. Teens are more apt to get acne when they're going through their changes and so forth. Fatigue is on this list. Yes, we are likely to be fatigued from time to time. These are normal things. Gas and being bloated. Yep, everybody will get that every now and again. But the point of this list is people are dealing with this on an ongoing chronic level. So fatigue is a part of their life on a much more consistent basis, if not every single day. Low sex drive, that's not normal. You shouldn't have a low sex drive. Having gas and bloatedness all the time shouldn't be happening. Chronic acne shouldn't be happening. These things are not normal, but they're what a lot of people have now become. It has become normalized for them. Again, they think they've just got the unlucky gene or what have you, and they just happen to have all of these problems. Urinary tract infections, vaginal yeast issues, eczema, rosacea. It's very easy to go to the doctor and say, I got unlucky. This is a problem for me. How do I deal with this? When in reality, the basis for it all is fungus overgrowth. So this fungus overgrowth, I already explained what it does. It's meant for decomposition. When it activates when you're alive, it actually attacks your good gut bacteria because it starts in the gut, right? It leads to major inflammation throughout your intestinal tract. It can actually perforate the lining of your intestines and leak the toxins into your bloodstream. Your immune system then reacts, right? Your immune system will react and try to attack, but really it's attacking you, i.e., or this is how we come up with autoimmune diseases. One autoimmune disease generally leads to another over time, sometimes very quickly. One of the reasons that happens is, like all other health issues, we go to the doctors, we get on antibiotics to deal with the symptoms of an autoimmune disease or another health issue. It feeds creates further dead matter in your body, feeds the fungus more. The fungus becomes more of an overgrowth, attacks your systems, leads to further problems with leaky gut syndrome, and the cycle just continues to get more and more out of hand. It is quite an insane cycle that we deal with this fungus overgrowth, and it's really crazy when you look at how we're dealing with it in terms of the medicines and antibiotic use. So be very aware of just how prolific and impactful it can be on all areas. So that fungus overgrowth can make its way to the liver, which is a sugar dumping ground, and blood transfers through the liver every 3 minutes. It makes its way around your entire body. So it can show up in any area. Hair loss, itchy ears. It's just fungus getting into your ears, itchy skin, Obviously, the rosacea, eczema, so any type of skin rashes that are appearing, that is generally fungus. You can have fungus on your toes and your toenails. I mentioned the autoimmune diseases, all of your intestinal diseases, colitis, diverticulitis, Crohn's, IBS, women's issues, either albeit hormone imbalances, but it could also be PCOS, endometriosis. Those are some big ones. People who are infertile. We have loads of testimonials on individuals who were told they'd never have babies, already went through the infertility issues, and after being on the Plexus products, ridding their bodies of the fungus, reintroducing good bacteria that was once damaged either by the overuse of antibiotics or fungus, that they're now getting their bodies back in balance and being able to have babies. Not everybody. We don't cure all diseases. This is a training call, but I do want to make that clear. We definitely do not cure diseases. We would never make that claim. We do not make any promises on some crazy outcome like everybody can have babies now, but we've definitely seen some very huge renewed health and transformations in terms of what people can expect for their lives after getting their bodies balanced. So again, just to impress upon you, it's not a direct correlation. Hey, you take the pink drink and this drink makes you pregnant. You take the ProBio 5 and the ProBio makes you pregnant. Nope. The pink drink has its own tasks at hand, which I'm not going to get into today. The ProBio 5 has its task, and it gets rid of that fungus overgrowth. And when you start to rid the body of the toxins and rebalance and get your blood sugars back in check and reduce your sugar intake because you've reduced your fungus overgrowth and your blood sugars are intact, your body will start to rebalance itself and function the way it would have had we never entered in with the damaging effects of processed sugars, refined carbs, and antibiotics that really feed this fungus and mess with your body. So I just want to make that very clear. Hopefully those of you who are on the call tonight, you'll have to take a look at this list when you get off of the call and this is recorded, because I'm not going to go through the entire list of things, but it's very widespread, and it's hard to find somebody nowadays who's not dealing with one or more of these issues. Generally speaking, if people are dealing with 2 to 3 and definitely 3 or more, we can assume that they've probably got some sort of fungus overgrowth, and it is how we determine whether or not we recommend the ProBio 5 and BioCleanse along with the Slim. So how does it affect weight? We hear so often people say, I work out daily and nothing seems to change. Well, we learned back in June that one of the reasons for that is when we are destroying some of this good bacteria, we are actually destroying one of them called Akkermansia that is now linked to obesity, meaning if you lack that bacteria in your system, you can eat a normal amount of weight of food and still gain a lot of weight and become obese. So that's one of the issues which we've taken care of with the Slim, right? But in terms of the fungus overgrowth, it's going to slow down your metabolism and disrupt normal detoxification processes. Major, major issue. Basically, bottom line, super simplified, a lot of people are walking around with a lot of poop, okay, in their systems. Bowel movements are not regular. You can see for those of you who are watching, you can see on the picture, we have a distended stomach. Lots of people are walking around with distended stomachs, and a lot of that ends up being excess poop that they're holding onto because of this overgrowth not inhibiting the detoxification process when we're consuming food. Slows down that metabolism, as I said, interferes with appetite, causing sugar cravings. So I mentioned this already. It becomes a parasite, so it's feeding off of you. Those sugar cravings are increased, and you're going to consume more sugar than you need, which is going to be stored as fat. It also creates a massive amount of inflammation. And this is also another reason why it causes so many problems. Lots and lots of health issues are linked to inflammation as well as weight gain, and it's being caused by this fungus overgrowth in a lot of cases. And it's linked also to fluid retention. So let me just read from a little bit of what I have here, because it really helps to talk through what this inflammation connection is. Eating high levels of saturated fats, trans fats, and refined sugars, which is a modern day diet, sets off a series of reactions. The bad fat triggers the liver to release chemicals to fight the toxins, which causes inflammation. Meanwhile, the glucose in food can't be transported to your cells while the body is inflamed, which means that your brain isn't registering the intake. The result is you're left feeling foggy, hungry, and prone to cravings, which can then restarts that whole cycle all over again. The more inflammation you have, the less efficiently you're using your calories, so you eat more and feel worse. This normal type of inflammation is a good thing. It helps your body protect and heal itself. However, when your immune system shifts out of balance, inflammation can run rampant in a negative way, causing chronic smoldering fire inside your body that contributes to disease and weight gain. Inflammation leads to every one of the major chronic diseases of aging: heart disease, cancer, diabetes, dementia, and more. It's also by far the major contributor to obesity. Being fat is being inflamed. That is a quote by Dr. Mark Hyman. So really, really important to reduce inflammation. Let me grab a drink here. You are what you eat, guys. That's a no-brainer, right? And this is getting more to, now that you know where Candida comes from, hopefully you understand why, as a company, we are able to then catapult in our businesses, and why the company corporate-wide has seen such tremendous, huge growth in the last 10 years of our existence, because we have definitely honed in on a very serious problem, and we've done it with a natural plant-based supplement. And it basically means pretty much everybody becomes our customers, right? What can we do to help our customers to improve the results? And that, I've mentioned this before, I want to mention it again, and the same thing goes for you. You are what you eat. While it is awesome that you're going to see reduced sugar cravings through the use of our products and ridding your body of fungus overgrowth, there are steps that you can take without even using our products. Actually, if you were really, really restrictive, which most of us aren't, or we wouldn't be in this position to begin with, you can actually create a complete diet that allows for you to rid your body of Candida. It's an insanely restrictive diet, but it can be done. If you want to just facilitate what you're doing with our Plexus products, here's your answer: organic, organic, organic. That probably shouldn't surprise most of you. If you know me at all, you understand I'm an insane promoter of organic foods. Yes, there's a difference. Have you looked in the news lately and seen all of the E. coli breakouts? That does not surprise me one single bit. We cannot keep processing our foods in the way that we're doing it, throwing tons of herbicides, pesticides, and growing massive farms next to massive, chicken farms that are being raised in just brutally horrible conditions, and expect not to have disease start to run rampant. So that's a side note that I get to say because I'm the leader tonight during the call. So it's just a total opinion, or it's not a total opinion, it's based on fact, but little side rant there, because I really want everybody to understand the importance of eating organic. Super, super duper huge. You are not going to be looking at herbicides and pesticides, and far less likely to ever see organic food rid with any type of E. coli issue. I won't say it would never happen, because everything does seem to, at some point, there's a potential for things to overlap, like when you have an organic garden next to a farmer who's spraying, for instance, you get the overlap. But you're far less likely to see those things in your foods, and those are very, very damaging. Chemicals of any sort are very damaging to your body. So try to eat organic. In terms of overall food, you want to be eating organically grown meats, so fresh meats. Lean cut, of course, is preferable. Organic vegetables, preferably fresh. Carrots are a very high eliminator of yeast, as a side note. Beans, potatoes, rice, pasta, and grains in moderation. These are all really good items for you, especially the beans. For instance, your heavy grains, like 7-grain type of breads and so forth, and your pasta, getting it whole wheat organic is very much best, but keeping that in moderation. Now, a side note to this too is a lot of people do like no carb diets and think that is the way to go, but I see those same people consuming, like, let's say something that's not necessarily high carb, but it's high in the wrong kind of fat, or it's very high in sugar, or it's fried food. Like, that is not really changing. It's almost like changing out one evil for another. So you want to be mindful of that. I'm not a big fan of just dieting one way over the other and restricting all carbs, and that's the only answer I have to pay attention to. It's a matter of balance here. So yes, you can eat rice, pasta, and grains. Just do it in moderation. Make sure they're whole grain and not refined carbs, and preferably organic. Fruits, if you're doing a straight up, very strict diet, you would normally limit yourself to 1 or 2 a day for your first month, because even though it's a natural sugar, and by the way, fruits process their sugars completely different than refined sugars. They process at a much slower rate. And that's nature's way of working with our systems. So the outcome is not the same as eating a refined sugar. That's why it's okay to eat fruits and eat those sugars versus refined sugars. Refined sugars actually push into your body basically instantaneously in very high volume, and they cause all kinds of problems. And that's for another training. But if you wanted to be really try to get yourself on a really quick, good start with our products, you would limit fruit in the first month, and then you can start going up from there. Organic butter and eggs. Real butter is okay for you. I eat as much butter as I want, you guys. And I just got done with all of my blood work from the hospital. I went to the clinic and got everything taken. I got an echocardiogram. Everything on my list came out absolutely top notch. I am in super great health. I eat real organic butter all the time. Same with eggs. If you can get farm fresh, free roaming eggs, that is 100 million times better, even better than the organic eggs at the store. Raw organic cow's milk, or really rice or almond milk, would be great too. Even the organic milk at the store is not even close to the same as raw organic cow's milk in terms of everything it can do for you. Back in the days, in the early 1900s, raw organic cow's milk was actually used as a form of medicine for many different health issues. So it has a lot of benefits. Yeast-free bread, crackers, and tortillas, same thing there, moderation. Honey, maple syrup, rice syrup, unsweetened apple butter can be some great alternatives to eating refined sugars. Again, but still keeping it in moderation. Baking powder breads versus yeast breads, same thing with pancakes and waffles. And drink tea and a very moderate amount of juices. You want to eliminate all sugars except honey, maple syrup, and moderate amounts of fruit. Carbs, 1 small portion per meal. All alcoholic beverages contain some form of yeast. I already talked about the milk, actually. Eliminate margarine, coffee. So caffeine is a powerful stimulant, and anything that stimulates the body will promote it to ferment more yeast. And this is why steroids are so dangerous. Steroids are powerful stimulants of yeast and should be saved for life-threatening situations only. Coffee is also extremely acidic, which is a medium for all diseases. You want to keep your body pH balanced, which is why we do that with our BioCleanse. pH balance our bodies, very important part of keeping yourself in a better place to avoid disease and cancer. No mushrooms, they are a fungi. Replace canned fruits and veggies with fresh or frozen. Avoid all antibiotics. That's obvious. Birth control pills, prescription drugs, and hormones. So everything you can do to avoid that. Now, with all of that said, anyone watching this, I want you to understand, I do realize some of this is unavoidable. I myself went through life-threatening health treatments for 4 years in my 30s. I was required to inject ethanol alcohol into my body, which, if you remember, I said earlier, is a direct problem for yeast overgrowth. I also used a mega amount of steroids and morphine and Vicodin for 4 years. So I know that there is a time and a place that antibiotics are a lifesaver and you have to take them. But just be mindful that every time you do, you're wreaking havoc on your body, and you have to take measures, which is why I'm such a fan of our supplements, to overcome the destruction that we do to our bodies, either through diet or the use of antibiotics, or like I said, the birth control pills, and people who run to the hospitals to get hormone balances and estrogen and all of that. You know, one thing is triggering another thing is triggering another thing, and it all leads to these medicines, which actually can cause a lot more harm than good in some cases. I'm just going to say a quick point about sweeteners too. I know a lot of people out there use artificial sweeteners. Oh my gosh, please, please, please avoid these products. Eat regular sugar if you have to. Don't eat sugar substitutes and so forth. They're really, really bad for you. Most of them are, all of them that I'm aware of actually. Some of the more popular ones are aspartame and Splenda, which are manufactured by food companies. They are not manufactured by food companies, sorry. They are manufactured by drug companies. Okay, you guys, there are over 6,000 foods and products now that contain them, including over-the-counter medications, chewing gum, and children's vitamins. The FDA lists 92 official symptoms and side effects linked to aspartame, including death. Okay, aspartame is a very serious chemical. I actually, as a real estate agent, side note here, I had a client who was poisoned by aspartame to the point that she lost the ability to walk because it fuses your ligaments together in your arms and legs. And for her, it was in her legs. Believe it or not, she was a kinesiologist, an internationally acclaimed author of kinesiology, and she flew around the world teaching on this, and yet she was poisoned by aspartame and couldn't walk. So kind of crazy. By eliminating aspartame from her diet, she was expected to have a full recovery over time, but she came to me because in the short term, in the few years in her future, she would not be able to be in a 2-story home. So she had to buy a single-story home because of aspartame poisoning. So this is some serious stuff, you guys. It also causes brain lesions and blindness. And the FDA allowed for a replacement of the aspartame to be sucralose, and sucralose causes liver damage. So whatever it is that's out there that is a chemical-based substance, that's what you should be avoiding. When we say what you are, what you eat, get rid of the chemicals, get rid of the preservatives, the colors, the refined sugars, refined carbs. If you don't recognize the name on a box, it's not to say that all unrecognizable names are wrong, but for the most part, avoid them. And if you don't know what it is and you think maybe it still could be good, then Google it before you buy it. That's what I say. Case in point, I'll just make one more case in point on this slide and then move on. I think we might actually be pretty much done here. But I went to the store the other day to get lemonade. And I had to go to a local store because I did not have time to go to Whole Foods. And I was having guests over, last minute thing. And so I looked for organic. They did not have organic. So the next thing I look for is 100% juice. Okay. So just caught my eye. There was a light lemonade. So like 15 calories per serving or something like that. And I was just curious because I don't usually buy this stuff anyway. Excuse me. The only juice I get is lemonade. It's organic and it comes from Costco. So I haven't picked up any other juice in years. So I just grabbed this bottle out of curiosity. I looked at the ingredients and sure enough, aspartame was one of the top 3 ingredients on the bottle. And interestingly enough, the bottle or the product, which looked like Tropicana lemonade or some sort of, it was a really popular brand. I remember that. A really popular brand, looked like a, juice company, right? Nope. This particular lemonade was processed through Coca-Cola, a soda company, right? So all this beautiful, fancy, pretty front, it looked all spring-like. They had beautiful lemons on there, right? It's aspartame, it's poisonous, and it's not healthy. So, at the end of the day, fungus, I hope you learned a lot about fungus overgrowth. Let me take myself off of here. I hope you feel like you learned a lot about fungus overgrowth. and all that it can do to your body to impact not only health issues, but weight problems. But I also hope that I have impressed upon you the need and the importance to also take personal responsibility, to read your labels, be mindful of the amount of products that have sugars. I think I read a statistic that 75% of processed items in a store now contain some form of sugar. So you want to be reading those labels, remembering that wonderful number, 4 grams of sugar equals 1 gram of, or 1 teaspoon of sugar consumption. 4 grams equals 1 teaspoon of sugar consumption. So when you're reading your boxes, you can kind of be mindful of that and looking at the per serving amount of sugar in a box, okay, and dividing all that out. And then remembering that women, 6 to 7 teaspoons a day, children, 5 teaspoons, men, 9 teaspoons, and start avoiding those 20 to 22 teaspoons a day that so many people are actually consuming. So that wraps up my my education for tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed the team call. I'm just going to quickly stop the recording